Whispers of destiny. The crystalline spires of Celestialis gleamed under the light of 3 moons, as Aya Vexitali moved through the Chronos gardens with practiced grace. Her purple skin shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed in rhythm. With her agitation, the vision came again last night. Aya spoke softly to Elder Thorn, who floated beside her, his form partially transparent in the evening mist. "The same human?" he asked, his voice like wind through ancient trees. Aya nodded, closing her eyes briefly to recall the details. A man with kind eyes standing before crowds, yet somehow alone. The pendant around his neck glows with our ancient symbols, though he doesn't seem to understand its power, and always the same location. A subterranean, gathering place filled with sound and light unlike anything in Celestialis. Elder Thorn's expression grew serious. "This is the 7th vision in as many lunar cycles, Aya. The Council believes this may be more than random temporal echoes." "What else could it be?" Aya asked, touching the temporal mark on her forehead, which identified her as one of the rare time-seers of her species. "Perhaps a convergence point," Elder Thorn replied. "A moment where multiple timelines intersect around a single event or person. The ancient texts speak of such phenomena occurring once every 10 millennia. Aya's heart quickened. "You think this human is significant to our future?" "To all futures, perhaps." Elder Thorn gestured toward the temporal pool at the garden's center. "The Council has made its decision, Aya. They've granted permission for you to time walk." Aya froze, her luminescent patterns flashing bright with shock. "But no one has time walked to Earth in generations. The dimensional barriers are weakening precisely where your visions lead." Elder Thorn interrupted. "We've detected a temporal anomaly in the human city of Berlin centered on coordinates that match your descriptions. The Council believes the pendant you've seen is the lost chrono crystal that disappeared during the Great Collapse." "That's impossible," Aya whispered. "The chrono crystal was destroyed centuries ago. Or so we believed." Elder Thorn said, "If it exists on Earth now, then something has altered the timeline. Already you must discover how a human came to possess it, and what connection he has to our world." Aya approached the temporal pool, its liquid surface reflecting not the moons above, but a swirling nebula of possible futures. "How long will I have?" "1 Earth cycle, what they call a day." Elder Thorn answered, "Any longer and the molecular displacement could become permanent. You would be trapped there, Aya, forever cut off from Celestialis." "And my powers?" "Limited. Your time sight will function, but weakly. Your healing abilities will be minimal. You'll appear human enough to avoid immediate detection, though your natural coloration will remain." Aya took a deep breath, steeling herself. "When do I leave?" "Now." Elder Thorn placed a small device in her palm. "This will return you to the exact moment you depart from our timeline once activated. Simply press it to your temporal mark." Aya closed her eyes as she stepped into the pool. The cool liquid embraced her, humming with ancient energies. The last thing she heard was Elder Thorn's voice fading into the void. "Find the human called Dr. Jian Chen. Find out how he came to possess the chrono crystal. And Aya, remember, form no attachments. Time walkers who bond with other realms risk unraveling the very fabric of existence." Then the world dissolved around her in a cascade of light and sound. Her consciousness stretched across time and space as Celestialis vanished. When Aya opened her eyes again, she stood in a dark alley. The air felt heavy and filled with unfamiliar scents. Rain fell from clouds that obscured unfamiliar stars. A distant rhythm pulsed through the ground beneath her feet, drawing her forward like a beacon. "Berlin," she whispered, tasting the strange word on her tongue. "Earth." She moved toward the sound, following not just her ears, but the pull of destiny itself. Tonight she would meet the human from her visions, and nothing in either of their worlds would ever be the same again. Quantum Masquerade. The pulsing bass from Club Nexus reverberated through Aya's body as she approached the nondescript warehouse entrance. A line of humans waited outside, many dressed in elaborate costumes and masks. The sign above read, "Quantum, Masquerade, One Night Between Realities." "Perfect timing," the doorman said, glancing at Aya's purple skin. "Great body paint job, your costume pass?" Aya hesitated, then noticed others showing digital tickets. She subtly moved her fingers, creating a small temporal distortion that made the doorman's eyes unfocus. "Right through you go," he mumbled, waving her inside. The interior of Club Nexus was a sensory explosion. Laser lights cut through artificial fog while hundreds of humans moved in rhythmic patterns to sounds that vibrated at frequencies Aya had never experienced. Holographic projections of galaxies and nebulae spiraled overhead, creating the illusion of dancing among stars. Aya moved through the crowd, her senses overwhelmed, yet focused, on a singular purpose: finding him. Finding Dr. Chen. The pendant in her visions would be her guide. "First time at Quantum?" a voice asked beside her. Aya turned to face a woman with intricate circuitry painted across her face. "Yes," Aya replied carefully, mimicking the speech patterns she'd observed. "I'm looking for someone." "Aren't we all, honey?" The woman laughed. "If you're looking for the man responsible for all this magic, that would be Dr. Chen. He'll be starting his set in about 10 minutes, main stage. Can't miss him." Aya's temporal mark tingled beneath her hair. "Thank you." She made her way toward the main stage where a complex array of equipment awaited. The anticipation in the room was palpable as the current music faded. The crowd began to chant "Chen, Chen, Chen." A spotlight illuminated the stage, and there he was. Dr. Jianchen stood before the equipment, his hands poised above an interface that seemed to respond to his movements without touch. His eyes were kind, just as in her visions, but with an intensity she hadn't foreseen. And around his neck hung the pendant, a crystalline fragment that pulsed with a light visible only to Aya's enhanced perception. The chrono crystal embedded in what appeared to be ordinary jewelry. "Welcome, travelers." Dr. Chen spoke, his voice amplified throughout the space. "Tonight we journey beyond ordinary reality. Are you ready to transcend?" The crowd roared in approval as Dr. Chen began to manipulate sound and light in ways that seemed almost magical to the human audience, but to Aya revealed an understanding of temporal physics that no Earth human should possess. She moved closer, her eyes fixed on the pendant. It was definitely the lost chrono crystal, though only a fragment, perhaps a third of the original artifact. Yet even incomplete, its power was evident as it responded to Dr. Chen's emotions, pulsing brighter with his excitement. For 2 hours, Aya watched him work. The music he created seemed to bend time itself, making moments stretch and compress in ways that left the crowd euphoric. When he finally concluded his set, the entire warehouse erupted in applause. Aya knew this was her moment. As Dr. Chen stepped down from the stage, she moved forward, intercepting his path. Their eyes met, and she saw immediate recognition flash across his face, though she knew they'd never met in his timeline. "Have we met before?" he asked, his voice betraying confusion. "Not yet," she replied, her gaze dropping to the pendant. "But I believe we were," meant to Dr. Chen's hand, instinctively moved to the crystal. "You're not from here, are you? And I don't mean Berlin." "No," Aya answered simply. "And neither is what you wear around your neck." Fragments of time moonlight streamed through the apartment windows as Dr. Chen placed 2 cups of tea on the coffee table. Aya sat perched on the edge of his couch, still wearing his oversized jacket over her shimmering dress, studying the room with intense curiosity. "You have questions," she said softly. Not a question, but a statement. Her purple skin caught the moonlight, creating patterns across the wall. Dr. Chen laughed nervously, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "About 1,000. Actually, let's start with the obvious one. Are you really from another world?" "Yes," Aya replied simply. "A planet called Celestialis, approximately 7-dimensional folds from your solar system. And you can travel through time?" "Not exactly." Aya's fingers traced invisible patterns in the air. "I can walk between temporal planes. The difference is subtle but important. I didn't travel backward or forward in your linear timeline. I moved sideways through a dimensional corridor that connected our worlds at this precise moment. Dr. Chen sat beside her, his scientific mind struggling to process her words. And these visions you mentioned at the club, the ones about me. Aya turned to face him, her eyes reflecting starlight. I've seen you in my dreams for months, always here, always now, always wearing that. She pointed to the pendant resting against his chest. Chen touched the amulet instinctively. This old thing? My parents said they found it the night I was born, wrapped in strange cloth next to me. You were adopted? Aya asked, leaning closer. Yes. Chen nodded. But not in the way you might think. I was left at a research station in Antarctica. My parents were scientists studying atmospheric anomalies. They found me after a strange aurora event. Aya's expression changed to one of astonishment. The Great Collapse. It makes sense now. What does? May I? She gestured to the pendant. Chen hesitated, then nodded, slipping the chain over his head and placing it in her palm. Moment. The amulet touched Aya's skin. It began to glow, pulsing with the same rhythm as the patterns on her skin. Ancient symbols etched across its surface became visible, shimmering with inner light. This is the chrono crystal, she whispered, or a fragment of it. A relic from my world, thought lost centuries ago during a cataclysm that tore holes in the fabric of reality. We call it the Great Collapse. I don't understand, Chen said, watching the crystal respond to her touch. What does this have to do with me? Aya's eyes met his. Everything. When the crystal shattered, its fragments scattered across dimensions. This piece somehow found you. That can't be coincidence. The crystal chooses its bearer. But I'm just a neurologist who DJs on weekends, Chen said with a nervous laugh. Nothing special. The crystal disagrees, Aya replied. And so do my visions. They showed me finding you at this precise moment in time and space for a reason neither of us yet understands. Chen watched, her face in the glow of the crystal, noting how the light seemed to move through her rather than around her. So what happens now? I'm not certain, Aya admitted. The elders sent me to retrieve the crystal, but now I wonder if that was ever truly possible. It seems bonded to you, has been since you were an infant. That's unprecedented. Their fingers brushed as she handed the pendant back, sending a jolt of electricity between them. The crystal pulsed brighter in response. Did you feel that? Chen asked softly. Yes, Aya whispered. Another unexpected development. Chen found himself leaning closer, drawn by something beyond explanation. The air between them seemed to shimmer with potential energy. The elders warned me about forming attachments, Aya said, yet didn't move away. Time walkers who develop emotional bonds to other realms risk destabilizing the temporal fabric. Is that what's happening between us? Chen asked, his voice barely audible. An attachment? I believe so, Aya answered. And it shouldn't be possible this quickly, this intensely, unless what? Unless it was always meant to happen. Aya's fingers tentatively touched his cheek. Time isn't linear, Dr. Chen. It's a web of possibilities. Some connections exist before they're even formed. Jian, he corrected gently. If we're potentially destabilizing reality together, you should at least use my first name. A smile flickered across Aya's face. Jian, then? The crystal pulsed again, brighter this time. Aya gasped, pulling back suddenly. Something's happening. The pendant lifted slightly from Chen's chest, hovering an inch above as if pulled by invisible forces. Across the room, Chen's computer screens flickered to life, displaying streams of data neither of them had initiated. The crystal is accessing your technology, Aya said, watching in fascination. It's searching for something. Images flashed across the screens, star charts, astronomical data, atmospheric readings, before settling on a series of pictures taken from the Antarctic research station 30 years earlier. The night Chen was found. That's my parents, Chen whispered, leaning forward. And that light above the station. that was never in these photos before. Aya moved closer to the screen. Because you weren't meant to see it, it's a temporal fold. The same kind I used to come here. The final image showed a small object falling from the light toward the station. Below the image, text appeared as if typed by invisible hands. Subject: Transfer complete. Timeline preservation protocol initiated. Guardian assigned Chen J awaiting reunion. 958 Earth days. 10,958 days. Chen calculated quickly. That's 30 Earth years. Aya finished. The exact time between your arrival on Earth and tonight. Their eyes met in the glow of the screen's understanding, dawning between them. I wasn't sent here to find the crystal, Aya whispered. I was sent to find you. Jen, you're not from Earth, you're from Celestialis. The crystal didn't choose you by chance. You were sent here with it for protection. Chen felt the room spin around him. Memories surfacing that weren't quite his own, yet somehow always had been. Then what am I? Aya took his hands in hers, the crystal pulsing between them. You're the reason I've been seeing visions my entire life. You're the connection between our worlds, and I believe you may be the key to saving both of them. The crystal flared suddenly, bathing them in brilliant light. As their fingers intertwined, the boundaries between them, between worlds, seemed to dissolve. Jean felt something awakening within him. Knowledge, power, memory. And as Aya leaned forward, drawn by forces beyond comprehension, he knew with sudden certainty that the moment their lips met, nothing in any world would ever be the same again. Celestial bonds. The kiss between Aya and Jian sent ripples through the fabric of reality. The moment their lips touched, the chrono crystal erupted with blinding light, engulfing them both in a cocoon of temporal energy. What's happening? Jian gasped as memories not his own flooded his consciousness. Visions of Celestialis, its crystal spires and 3 moons, the faces of people he'd never met yet somehow recognized. The crystal is awakening your dormant connection to Celestialis. Aya whispered, her purple skin glowing intensely. Your true heritage. A sudden tremor shook the apartment. Books fell from shelves, pictures crashed to the floor. Outside, lightning split the sky, though no storm clouds were visible. Aya's expression shifted to alarm, the temporal barrier. It's destabilizing faster than I anticipated. Jian's phone rang unexpectedly. The caller ID showed his research colleague, Alex. Jian. Alex's voice was panicked when he answered. Something's happening at the lab. The quantum sensors are going crazy. Unexplained energy signatures are appearing all over the city, centered on your location. I know, Jian replied, watching as small objects around his apartment began to float, defying gravity. Alex, listen carefully. Lock down the lab. Don't let anyone near those readings. He ended the call, turning back to Aya, who stood with her hand pressed against the window, her expression grave. The elders were right, she said. A time walker forming an attachment has consequences. I can feel the walls between dimensions thinning. Our worlds are bleeding into each other. Jian joined her at the window, witnessing the impossible. People on the street below walked unaware as portions of Celestialis momentarily flickered into existence around them. Ghostly spires, phantom gardens, strange creatures appearing and vanishing. Is this dangerous? He asked. Catastrophic. Aya replied. If the barriers collapse completely, both worlds could be destroyed in the temporal backwash. Jean touched the crystal, now burning hot against his skin. Then we have to stop it. How much time do we have? Hours, perhaps. Aya's voice wavered. There's only one solution. I must return to Celestialis. Immediately, breaking our connection should stabilize the barriers. And if that doesn't work? Then the elders will initiate temporal severance. Aya's eyes filled with sorrow. They'll cut all connections between our worlds permanently. The crystal would be neutralized and you. What would happen to me? Jian pressed. Your connection to Celestialis would be severed. Aya touched his face gently. The part of you that belongs to my world would simply cease to exist. And us, whatever this is between us, would never have been. Aya's voice broke. The timeline would reset. You would remain Dr. Jian Chen, brilliant neurologist of Earth with no memory of me or your true origins. Another tremor, stronger than before, shook the building. Across the street, a section of wall briefly transformed into a crystalline structure before returning to normal. There must be another way, Jian insisted, pulling Aya close. I've only just found you. Only just discovered who I really am. I can't lose that now. The crystal chose you for a reason. Aya pressed her forehead against his. Perhaps it knows something we don't. The pendant pulsed between them, its light forming patterns that reflected in both their eyes. A silent communication neither fully understood. There might be another option, Jean said suddenly, one the elders never considered. What? Instead of fighting the connection between worlds, he said, excitement building in his voice. What if we stabilize it, create a controlled bridge? That's never been done, Aya whispered. Because no one's ever had both. Jian held up the crystal, a fragment of Celestialis, and someone connected to both worlds. Understanding dawned in Aya's eyes. You think you could? Not alone. Jian took her hands. Together we could create a new kind of temporal anchor. Another quake rocked the building, more violent than before. Windows cracked. Light fixtures swayed. Somewhere in the distance, sirens began to wail. We have to try, Aya agreed, as reality continued to fracture around them. But Jian, if we fail, then at least we'll have tried, he finished, together. Their hands clasped around the crystal as the boundaries between worlds continued to dissolve around them, the impossible choice looming before them. As the night deepened, so did the crisis, the fate of two worlds now resting in their intertwined hands. Resonance of hearts. The chrono crystal hovered between them, pulsing with energy that seemed to draw from both their beings. Jian and Aya stood at the epicenter of temporal chaos as Berlin and Celestialis flickered in and out of each other's existence. Focus your thoughts, Aya instructed, her purple skin almost translucent with power. Imagine the worlds not merging but existing in harmony, connected yet separate. Jian closed his eyes, concentrating on the dual memories now flowing through him. Images of his life on Earth intertwined with flashes of Celestialis. The crystal responded, growing brighter. It's working, he whispered, feeling the energy patterns shifting around them. A voice suddenly echoed through the dimensional rift. Aya. Fextali. Elder Thorn's form shimmered into partial existence, his expression severe. You've violated the primary directive the Council has authorized temporal severance. Elder, please, Aya pleaded. We've discovered the truth. Jian isn't just connected to the crystal, he's from Celestialis, sent here during the Great Collapse. Impossible. Elder Thorn's form flickered. No child of our world could survive the crossing. Yet here I stand, Jian said, stepping forward, the crystal illuminating his features, revealing subtle markings beneath his skin similar to Aya's. The crystal has protected me all these years, waiting for this moment. Elder Thorn studied him intently. Even if true the damage is done, the barriers collapse as we speak. We're not trying to separate the worlds, Aya explained urgently, but to create a stable bridge, a controlled connection. Such a thing has never existed, Elder Thorn argued, because no one has ever existed in both worlds simultaneously. Jian countered. I am the bridge, Elder Thorn. The crystal chose me for this purpose. Another violent tremor shook the apartment. The walls became transparent, revealing glimpses of Celestialis beyond them, 3 moons visible through the ceiling. The temporal overlap, accelerating. We need your help, Aya begged, not resistance. Elder Thorn hesitated, then nodded. The Council will assist. But be warned, if you fail, both worlds face annihilation. His form dissolved, replaced by a chorus of ethereal voices, the elders of Celestialis joining their power to Aya's. The crystal expanded its light, forming intricate patterns throughout the room. Now Jian Aya urged, complete the connection. Jian placed his hands on either side of the floating crystal, his years of neurological research finally finding their true purpose. Understanding how connections formed between seemingly separate systems, I can see it, he gasped. The pattern, the resonance point. The crystal pulsed once, twice, then shattered, not in destruction, but transformation. Its fragments expanding into a network of light connecting every corner of the room, every point where the worlds overlapped. Jian felt Aya's consciousness merge with his momentarily, their combined understanding flowing into the newly formed network, each fragment of the crystal finding its place in the pattern. It's stabilizing, Aya whispered in wonder. The violent fluctuations began to calm, the random appearances of Celestialis becoming controlled, focused. A beautiful garden materialized in Jian's living room, solid yet somehow not displacing what was already there. The two realities existing in the same space yet distinct. Elder Thorn reappeared, his form now fully visible. Extraordinary. You've created a quantum resonance field, a stable dimensional overlap. Is it permanent? Jian asked, still holding Aya's hands. With maintenance, yes. Elder Thorn examined the network of crystal fragments. These connection points will need monitoring, but they should hold. The Council is already studying the effect. It seems you were right, Dr. Chen. You were meant to bridge our worlds. Aya turned to Jian, tears in her eyes. The temporal directive no longer applies. I'm free to stay or return as needed. The connection is stable. And us? Jian asked softly. Also stable. She smiled, touching his face. Perhaps the most stable connection of all. The crystal fragments pulsed in agreement. The network they formed, not just connecting worlds, but hearts across the vastness of time and space. So what happens now? Jian asked, as the first light of dawn began to filter through the windows, illuminating both his apartment and the Garden of Celestialis that now partially existed within it. Now, Aya smiled. We begin the real journey. Understanding what this means for both our worlds, creating a future neither of us could have imagined alone. As morning light touched the crystal network, it cast rainbows across the walls. The impossible made real. Two worlds forever changed. Two souls finally complete, finding in each other what had always been missing. Together, Jean whispered, across all time and space. Aya agreed. And as they sealed their promise with a kiss, the crystal fragments pulsed in perfect harmony, their resonance echoing across the stars, a new chapter beginning in a story written across the cosmos itself.